All right, welcome back to the Parkour UK podcast. We have two fantastic guests today. Here we have Callun Lavington, our digital lead at Parkour UK, who's also going to be one of our guests today. We have Rich Cobbold, and we have Nadine Barnard, our fantastic head of development and professional podcast host here at Parkour UK. How are we all doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah,
How are
good.
you?
I'm great. I'm so great. All right. We start how we always start, with how you guys got into parkour. I know you started first, Callun, so I'm curious, what's the story there?
It's the most cliche parkour origin story ever, I think. So 12 years ago, started in 2012, and I started because the Storm Free Run Volume 1 video got recommended on YouTube. I clicked on it, watched it, and was just like completely gassed at like everyone like doing big flips and jumping. I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And back then I wasn't doing any sports. I was like just started secondary school. I was kind of like in this position where I was like, oh, I don't really fit in with football. I don't really enjoy PE. Saw this video and I called up my mates that lived up the road, showed them the video, and then we went down to the park at the end of my road and started hopping over the fences.
Come on.
Pretty much like from that point on, it's just that
The rest is history.
took us into the town. That took us like, just
Before gyms and stuff.
Yeah. It's just, and it was like a really, just community wise, like very quickly met everyone else within the local town that was doing it. And pretty much haven't looked back since.
When
really.
was that?
2012. So
2012. How old were you then?
13.
Wow.
Yeah. So next year will be 13 years of parkour, which is half of my life.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Wow.
committed to it. So
Next year you're going to get into the most of your life you would have done parkour. That's a big step. Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah. I'm still a couple of years off that. That's lovely though, man. Cool. And so how about you, Rich? Obviously, bit of a more unique origin story, starting parkour middle age. How's it been?
Oh, I don't like middle age.
Sorry.
Steady.
Don't be too
No, that's all good. Yeah, technically accurate. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember when I was a kid, I was playing, we had family farms and we were playing TIG as a bunch of kids running around. I was maybe like 12, 13. And a friend of mine was ahead and he was a lot shorter than me. And he found a gate and he did what I now think of as a Kong over it, clean over it. And I stopped at the gate and went, I can't do that. How do I catch up with him? And it was inspiring, but there wasn't really a name for it back then. I'm a little bit older. And then David Bell came up in an advert that I watched many years later. And then Jump London came on and Jump Britain the next year. And I was in university. So there wasn't the facility around me to get involved. There weren't gyms then. I was no longer hanging out with my mates as teenagers in parks. There wasn't the opportunity to get involved. So it was something that I've been passionate about for years. And then kind of life gets in the way. I had kids, put on a little bit of weight. And I never thought that I would be able to physically do any of it. And I didn't think, I was in the right opportunity. And it's been thrilling for me watching all these gyms be created, all these groups be created, and it's become more mainstream and got referenced in many different places. But I always thought it was out of my reach. And then my two kids, my youngest kid is now 9. And last year when he was 8, my wife turned to me and said, he keeps climbing up trees and one day he's going to fall out of them. And we need some way to minimize how much damage he might take. How could we do that? And I said, oh, well, we should find somewhere that does parkour. And we found somewhere and he now loves it. And so my New Year's resolution for the year just gone, or just ending, is I said, I want to learn some parkour skills, see what I can do. Before I hit 40, I want to see if I've got the ability to do anything. And so I was just casually Googling and I found Transferrable and went down. And it was so different because I think when you're a little bit older, especially if you're carrying a few extra pounds, going into any gym is completely intimidating.
This is
That must have
Transferrable
been-
parkour in Crawley, just
Correct.
to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely.
That must have been nerve-wracking, though, just walking in, having not done it before.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Yeah, and I roped in my brother to come along, and we went
Moral
down.
support.
And they were running an introductory session, so it was very much a case of going down and trying it. And we thought it would be a laugh. We might do it once and then never again. But what's been really lovely is, I think, unlike going to a gym where you go just to work out, and it's intimidating for that reason if you don't look like other gym goers, or joining a sport where it's about how capable you are at a sport. The really nice thing about the parkour community, particularly within Transferrable, is that it's completely welcoming to anybody from any different backgrounds. I couldn't do a lot on the first day, and we're now 10 months later, and I'm a lot more capable than I was, and learning more every day, and it's been incredible. It's now the linchpin that my life revolves around is going to parkour every week.
Amazing. And are there other people a similar age to you in that group, or?
Yeah, so Transferrable itself does a mix of different adult sessions, and as you would expect, most of the sessions are geared towards different ages of kids, but there's some open sessions that anyone can join. There's also an adults group that goes on a Thursday, and then our group's now evolved into a kind of parents and child type group.
Yeah.
So which is lovely, and I think pretty unique. My daughter comes down most weeks, and I think we get, there's always boys who want to do parkour. It's harder to get young girls interested in parkour. And for my daughter, she looks at her younger brother and him doing all this physical activity and assumes that he's the physical one and she can't do it.
And so, how old's your daughter?
She's 12. So, and reaching that age where, having a good sense of self is important, and, confidence in what she can do. And so she's been coming along for, I think, 10 weeks, something
So
like that.
you train
now.
together with her?
We do, yeah.
Oh,
we
nice.
and the guys there will set up challenges which are a mix of, stuff she can do and then a more advanced version that I can do. And we'll practice different things, and there'll be some stuff that's aimed at her and some stuff at me. So it's great. We have a group of 4 or 5 of us now that come on an ad hoc basis whenever we're available.
That's great, because there aren't many sessions out there that you can do as a parent alongside your child.
Sure.
There's mom and baby sessions and parent and baby sessions, but once they get past that, there's very few sessions that you can actually do alongside your child. So that's great.
It's actually a different sport. We refer to it as Man parkour.
Hey. When you're talking and somebody's just thinking of a pun instead of listening to us, what can I say?
You were hitting us with the dad jokes beforehand, so I had to come through with a little something. But you mentioned the community around Transferrable. How have you found the parkour community, both in and outside Transferrable? Actually, for both of you, it's been a while since I've been part of a gym community. I'm here part of the Casual London community, and I used to be in Sydney, and so I'm wondering how you find the Transferrable community, and maybe especially for Callun, what are the differences between that community and just the general Brighton outdoor community?
Yeah. So I guess for us, it's really important to create an environment that is like a safe space for everyone to come in, regardless of ability, regardless of background, regardless of age, identity, or anything like that. Like, creating that safe space is super important, because I think one of the best skills that you can develop as a parkour coach is that understanding of how everyone feels when they're training. And I think the good thing that parkour delivers is, regardless if you're 13 years down the line or 10 months down the line, I'm still going to be facing the same challenges within my training that Rich or the other people in the adult session would also feel, because he'll find a challenge scary, might find it difficult and challenging. I get that within my own training as well. So I know completely how it would feel to be in that position. And I guess part of my job as a coach is to utilize the 12, 13 years of experience that I've got to help individuals achieve their movement goals and stuff. In terms of community wise, I think creating those safe spaces are so important, because like Rich said about, gyms or other sports, if you go to a gym, you're very much on your own. You're kind of you go over to the treadmill, you go to the barbell, unless you've got a partner that you kind of go with, it can be quite an intimidating space, and there's not really a lot of communication.
And you need a lot of self-motivation.
Exactly that.
Yes, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with other sports as well, if you think, a lot of the time you go into these sports clubs or whatever, the first thing you they tell you to do is put on a bib. You're either bibs or non-bibs, and the aim is to score as many goals as possible, and it becomes a competition right when you walk through the door.
Yeah.
Most sports are fundamentally competitive.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a big difference. Yeah.
So for us, it's like we want the space to be as welcome as possible, regardless of you're 2 months into training or 10 years down the line. It's like, we want you to come in, we want you to learn something, we want you to feel like you're welcome in a space where there's no judgment, there's no expectation to achieve, some kind of end goal or anything like that. It's like, you guys can come in. For us, it's, such an important thing. And I think, I still get it even 13 years down the line. Sometimes it's really intimidating going out training to a spot where there's so many other people, especially if there's people that you don't know.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like, we want to try and build this kind of internal community that not only can then go out to the outside world together as a community, but also like just to make everyone who come to our classes, who come to our open sessions, who come to any sort of event that we run, to feel welcome. And when people show up, it's like, oh, they've
and
not
that's
been
super
here.
important, isn't it?
Yeah.
The last thing you want is to walk through some doors and, like you say, just feel intimidated the minute you walk through, and it's like, you could easily just turn around and walk straight back out.
I actually think it's unique to parkour. I can't think of any other physical activity that you can do that's inherently supportive and non-competitive. You go to any parkour community event or spot, and people will not be judging you for your level of ability, but pushing you to do an extra 1% on what you have done before.
It's effort that's applauded the most. It's not about your level. It's about how far you're pushing your limit, whatever that is.
Right. And that breakthrough might be, a small pre over a small gap.
Yep.
But if that's your limit and you're breaking through that, then that's just as important as somebody doing, a massive equivalent of the same. I think that's, it's been lovely. And I don't think about intimidation anymore. I don't think about going into the gym and feeling like, will I be able to do something or not? I'm going down to spend the time with mates, and I happen to be burning off a load of calories at the same time, which is a nice ancillary benefit.
And do you train in the street as well, or do you just go to the gym?
I have done a little bit. It's harder for me where I've got 2 kids to have that available time at the times that are convenient for parkour training. And being completely honest, 10 months in, I'm still learning. So it's one of those things that I want to do.
You could take your daughter there. You and your daughter could do a little bit.
I'm sure we will in time. Yeah, like it's not something that I have any fear about or concern of doing. It's just fitting it in with all the other activities you have when you're a parent, and their social lives are at least 5 times more busy than mine.
I know that feeling.
So,
especially in winter as well, when like basically the only hours of sunlight are working hours for the most part as well, if you want to do outdoor sessions. Yeah. But you touched on it a bit. I wanted to ask what have been like the real benefits you felt so far from parkour, like social benefits, health benefits, doing it with your family. What do you reckon you've really got out of it the most so far?
Yeah, it's a long list, honestly. It's been lovely for the family. We've had sessions where not only my daughter, but my son and my wife have come down.
Does your wife join in?
She has joined in.
I
wouldn't say it's a passion for her as it is for the rest of us, but she's happy to get involved. So that's been great, and it's a real nice social event for all of us. I've also got involved my kids' scout group, and they've come down and tried it out.
That's
cool. There's been some nice things where I've got 20 kids, and they're all doing different activities.
Doing us favours with participation.
Yeah,
lovely.
It's been great.
Record those numbers.
Yeah, and honestly, trying to find stuff for a kids' scout group to do is really hard. So if you've got a gym in your local area, get down there and get involved, because it's great. Really nice way for the adult scout leaders to sit back and do nothing while the kids entertain for them. It's perfect. And then from a personal basis, I mentioned before, as an adult, I've always carried a few extra pounds. There's nothing more motivating to make you want to do something about that than, I can't do that climb up, and I know I've got the technique correct. I'm just, the ratio to weight versus muscle is off there, so I need to improve that. And it's, I'm down about 2.5 stone this year, and I attribute a big amount of the motivation there to wanting to be better at parkour and wanting to be able to do more, because it's limiting if you feel like you could there's certain stuff that you can't do. I don't want to be limited by that.
So that weight loss is from parkour as well as wanting to lose weight to better
For
yourself
sure.
at parkour.
Yeah, like, I think it's unfair to say it's entirely from parkour, but like, you know, it was something I wanted to do anyway. But, you know, there's a tangible benefit to being able to say, right, you know, I couldn't do that lache cap before, and now I can. You know, you start to see the demonstrable improvements, you know, in part because I've gotten fitter and healthier, you know, to do better parkour, and because of the parkour I'm doing.
I can see you're super motivated. And I wanted to ask you about that because Callun said you might be interested in doing a coaching qualification. You're looking to get involved in the sport more than just, you know, practicing a couple of times a week. So, I mean, what are your plans there? What are you hoping to do, like, in the space?
I don't know. It's a good question. I've never been somebody who makes long-term plans. I kind of go with the flow and say yes to opportunities. But yeah, like I think I've only been doing it 10 months. There's a long way to go just to get good at parkour. That's the first step. But yeah, in the future, I can see myself doing a coaching qualification. I already teach snorkeling and teach at Scouts. So like there's some stuff there that I'm already doing to
Transferrable
coach
skills.
kids.
Yeah.
So like I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, I think the most important thing is finding a community where you can, you know, be involved and be proactive and, you know, help other people through those skills. So if there's opportunity in the future to do that, then yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And I just wanted to ask how you, obviously you touched on it briefly, but how you make the sort of work-life balance work, you know, family time, work time, parkour time, like any tips you have on juggling all that stuff? Like,
no, do you?
yeah, it's a hard question.
No.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wish there was a Shangri-La easy answer. And I think any parent will attest that there just isn't.
Yeah.
You know, like parkour is a big part of my interest in my life. But for my kids, the reality is it's one of many activities they do, whether it's, you know, performing a piano or, you know, horse riding, skiing, like they're into everything. So there's definitely a balance to be had. Work-life balance doesn't particularly get in the way because I tend to do it in the evenings and, you know, weekends if I have a chance. And, you know, over time, those balance shift and you spend more time doing different stuff as you get more, as your kids get more or less into those things. I think the first thing is just finding a class or somewhere you can join locally that works for your existing schedule. I was lucky to find that with Traversal, and once you've got that, it's easy then to keep that up because, again, you know, being a parent, you tend to have a fairly rigid schedule where, you know, Tuesday night is horse riding evening or you know, whatever it might be. And that's hard to flex around. So, yeah, we now have set
That's
parkour
nice, though,
times.
that you get that opportunity to do it with the family and that you can have that family time doing that activity that you all really enjoy. There's not many sports out there that offer that opportunity.
Sure. And, you know, I think you know, my son has definitely learned how to fall better, so that's great.
So the tree falling is
It
nailed.
works.
I like that angle as well because people are afraid of their kids doing parkour because they think they're going to get hurt. But realistically, all kids do parkour,
And
right?
all
and
kids
you
are
learn
going to
the
get
skills.
hurt as well. Like it will happen. It's about mitigating it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so you can mitigate it to some degree by learning basic parkour skills. So I think there's a strong argument to be made that having some basic parkour is actually going to make you safer as a kid doing kid things like climbing
Yeah.
trees, which you're going to do inevitably anyway.
We've definitely found that. And then the flip side of it with my daughter is just the amount of confidence, you know, as I say, as a burgeoning teenager, you know, she's battling with where she fits in and you know, comparing herself to other people who in the past have been more active. And so for her to push and to be able to do a jump she's not done before or, you know, to be able to break a mental barrier is a huge deal.
That's
So
amazing. Do you think she'll keep doing it?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, one night a week she gets to stay up an hour later than she would
Ah.
otherwise. So
Bonus.
there's a massive incentive for her there. But no, she loves it as well. And, you know, even on days that she doesn't feel massively into doing a lot physically, she still wants to go because she gets to hang around with adults and, you know, do
That social side of it.
yeah. And, you know, it's a fairly relaxed environment where, you know, she can get treated like a grown-up for an hour. So, yeah.
Amazing.
It's
Do
nice.
any of her friends do it?
We have brought different friends down, and some of them have really enjoyed it. Others, it's not for them, which, you know, like any activity. And several of the friends want to do it more regularly, but it's it's midweek and it's later. So
Yeah.
there's been a few of her friends who've joined on some of the weekend classes and some of the holiday classes, and it feels like it's, Traverse and I've done a good job of kind of getting into little niches in the community, and we know quite a few people who've joined in different areas.
Fantastic. We talk a lot about kind of training mindsets on the podcast. And so I'd be very curious, firstly for you, Rich, and then for you, Callun, what your goal is out of a parkour session, or maybe multiple goals. Like me as an athlete, like I want to just do the hardest thing I can. If I can't do that, I want to support someone else to do the hardest thing they can. I want that crazy moment, but so what is it for you? Is it about the social element, the health element? Do you have big goals about the family side? What, like on a given parkour session, you're maybe a 1 hour class, what are you trying to get out of it?
Yeah, great question. I think the older I've got, the more my relationship to risk has changed. So, I'm not doing some of the things I was doing when I was a teenager, nor would I want to. There's no part of me that wants to do a manpower type gap like in the future. It's just not in my genes. And I'm okay with that. For me, there's things that I want to be able to do that I couldn't do. I want to be able to do a backflip. How cool is that?
Yeah.
What percentage of the population can do a backflip?
Yeah.
Things like palm spins, things like a really clean climb up. Those kind of things I definitely want to get. And so every time I go, I'm just looking to do 1% more than I did last week. And that might be either a mental breakthrough or a physical breakthrough.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be across everything either. We can do 20 different challenges. And if I do 1% on one of them and I feel like that's worthwhile, then I leave happy.
To win.
Yeah.
And I figure, 1% compounds over time, right? You do that 100 times and suddenly you're significantly better than you were before. So yeah, just little incremental improvements every time. And it's showing, 10 months ago, I wasn't able to do half the things I'm able to do now. And, I'm getting good feedback.
And it's motivating, isn't it, when you're able to do things and when you see that improvement in just 10 months.
For sure. And again, comparing that to going to the gym or joining a sports group, you don't get that same thing of like, hey, I got home, I did a lache to cat today. Like, that's amazing. I couldn't do that before, and now I can do it. Like, that's a big win. And because the sport's so variable, there's so many different fundamental skills, you can do that again and again and again.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like in parkour, it's really satisfying from the start in parkour because the newbie gains you get when you're learning a new thing, there are lots of new movements are incredible and you really skill up very quickly, and then you start to progress slower once you already have that baseline of skills. But in something like the gym, like with when you start going to the gym regularly, as hard as that is already, imagine you do 3-4 times a week. They say it takes a month for you to notice something and 2 months for people to notice something else, like in terms of your appearance, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very hard slog on your own. It takes a long time. And then even with conventional sports, it takes a while to develop the skills. So that's a good point that I should use when I'm marketing the sport is like just the newbie gains you get, the early gains, the quick upskilling. It's really fun. It's satisfying. You can learn to
and at any
calm
age
quickly.
as well.
At any age. I've taught people to backflip in their first session sometimes. You know what I mean? It's incredible. Yeah.
Why haven't you taught me to backflip in my first session?
Should we go outside?
The other thing actually is like if the incremental improvement in the gym is adding an extra 5k to your reps or and that is inherently less satisfying than being able to do a skill that's cool that other people can't do that you couldn't do before. There's no.
You can film it and put it up and be like, look, Dad did a backflip. Like, sick.
I've got a video of me doing a forward roll through a narrow space that, like, every one of my friends is bored of me showing them at this point. But I'm still so proud of it. Yeah, you don't get that at the gym.
That's one for Christmas Day. That'll be out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They won't be able to look at anything else. Have you seen this forward roll?
And what about you, Callun? What's the mindset when you're going for a parkour session? Maybe has it changed? Be 13 years is a long time. Like your goal when you go out to train.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I think, at least like personally within my training and stuff, I think as the sport like kind of grew in tandem with like social media and stuff, and you had things like TikTok and like Instagram Reels and stuff all pop up. I think kind of like just before I sort of started coaching, so about 7 or so years ago, and probably for like a few years whilst I was into coaching as well, is I kind of like fell into this like rut a little bit of everyone's like sharing their clips on Instagram and everyone's doing like really big and cool stuff. And I think for a set of time, I kind of put this like expectation on myself that I should be performing in some kind of way. I should be trying to share, my training on social media, and maybe we'll go into that a bit more with like the Parkour Park and stuff later on. But like now I've just I'm very content with what I've achieved in parkour so far. So for me, like there's been like challenges that I've wanted to do, that I've worked towards. There's some that I've done and completed, and some that I haven't. But now I'm very much like the idea of pushing to be this like very like successful like athlete that performs every time they go out training. It's not possible. It's like a very unrealistic expectation to put on yourself. So now I just want to be able to just keep moving, and whether that be a couple of days of intensive training where I'm really pushing some challenges that I've really wanted to do for a long time, or if it's just I spent half an hour outside doing a little bit of moving. I just enjoy the movement and the training, rather than now like just I need to get this clip to put it on Instagram and social media and stuff, and like that, like having that expectation, like, and I think part of it comes as part of a coach as well. Like when you start coaching, you have kids looking up to you, and there's a kind of expectation from these kids that like, oh, you're the coach, like you're the one that's teaching them. They expect you to like perform at a very high level and stuff. And I think now like I'm just very comfortable with where I'm at in training and how I'm able to move. And I more so just want to keep the longevity of that, because we're not going to be able to physically progress massive amounts for forever.
So enjoy moving for long.
Yeah. And really thinking of that sort of, for me, long term is like, I want to keep coaching, I want to keep moving, but I want to do this in a way that is safe for me, is safe for the people that are watching me, but also, just like not worrying so much about sharing my physical training with people, because now for me, it's my training, and like I've cemented that now. Like it's my like it's the thing that I do for myself. I don't feel the need to share it anymore. So.
And do you think social media can put some people off training if they can't hit those big jumps all the time and film those moves that are sort of worth watching?
I think the way, and Max can probably agree with me on this, when I first started parkour about 12, 13 years ago, is you didn't have your Instagram reels, you didn't have TikTok. I think back then Instagram... It was
YouTube. There were some YouTube videos, but that's it.
Yeah, but back then, like Instagram wouldn't allow you to share videos or anything like that. So,
it was photos just then, wasn't it?
So your parkour content would be on YouTube. Yeah. And back then, the videos were not necessarily like professional production, but they had a bit of like a story element to them. They had this, there was this kind of like vibe that parkour kind of brung, that to me made me kind of fall in love with it. The idea of like, meeting new people, traveling around, the movement in the video. Sometimes it was amazing, and then other times it was like more so things that for me were on a realistic level.
Yeah.
It was achievable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now when we watch Ellis do triple flyaway, it's like, but it felt like, I can get there,
But it's so easy now for videos like Ellis or Dom, for those big videos to go viral. And what then comes with that is, yes, you could argue more eyes are getting on the sport of parkour and more movement and stuff. But then you also have these big things going on that people look at it and go,
can't live up to
I'm never going to be able to do that. Or I have no idea where to start doing that.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not realistic for most people.
No.
Yeah, so I think we need more media around like the benefits you can get, at early stages in a realistic level as well. It's the natural thing. I wouldn't even say it's unfortunate. It's just the way things are. Is that the cream of the crop will rise to the top, and the stuff that goes viral is going to be absolute insanity every time. But I think being able to provide the resources and show the benefits across the range is a big thing we should work more towards as well. To be fair, at Parkour UK, we have started on some of those projects as well, which is cool to see. I wanted to also ask about, on the topic of Instagram, you started a pretty cool project. You've been trying to visit every parkour park and gym in the UK. So what have you learned so far from that experience?
I've definitely bitten off more than I can chew.
How many have you been to so far?
I've got the list on my phone.
Yeah, let's see.
So parkour gym wise,
Because it doesn't feel like there's that many, but there's actually a lot.
There's a lot more than you think.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think,
this is outdoor parks as well.
yeah, outdoor parks. I've not even touched that yet. There's about like 50-ish parkour parks. Some of them,
Wow.
like, it's a big risk because some of them might not actually still be there. So I
Yeah,
could visit and
Oh, wow.
It's
it would
just
be not.
nothing.
Are you gonna go all the way up to like not just England, like the whole of the UK?
Yeah.
Come on.
What's the time frame on this, Callun?
2 years for
okay.
at least for every gym, because I think that's
achievable.
more achievable.
Yeah.
So on my list, I don't have a specific number, but I reckon there's close to 20 parkour gyms.
I heard after you do the UK, the next 2 years is going to be Europe.
Oh gosh.
So wait, 20 that you've done or you're going to visit?
That I'm going to. So currently, so far, I've done Nova City in Rotherham, Aspire Parkour in Peterborough, Spiral Free Run in Bedford, Parkour Project in Poole, and then Traversal, which is obviously the one that very easy.
Yeah,
like,
easy one.
strike
Yeah,
off
yeah. You get one.
And then everything else is just listed. So you've got Fluidity Free Run in Cardiff. You've got Grimsby coming up this weekend for me. And it's just, for me, it started with the parkour gyms because I think I was kind of at this point where I was like, well, there's actually like a load of spaces that you can go to try parkour, to learn parkour, and just wanting to kind of showcasing the spaces that are available. And I was kind of like visiting a few gyms over like a few weekends for like different events and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe I can just look at highlighting some of these spaces, share it on social media for the community to go and visit, or, if it pops up on a kid's, like I had one very recently, this is more of an outdoor park and stuff, like, but highlighting those spaces to people. And then that obviously turned into parkour parks as well, because there's about 50 of those in the country. So I was like, I'll go and try a few of these out. And there was a new development in Littlehampton, Parkour Park wise. And that started a lot of conversations like on YouTube and stuff. Like I shared that video like on Instagram, on TikTok, despite not understanding how TikTok works.
I feel too old for TikTok, and I'm 26.
I don't think anyone knows how TikTok works.
Yeah. TikTok's a different, but people use it. Young people use it as like a search platform now.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it makes me feel old. That's unbelievable. TikTok. Anyway, yeah.
And that was the thing that you said there, is like most of these platforms now, they're kind of built in a way that they become search platforms. So people like look for spaces like this, and I think it's very challenging. I always found it when I was younger. You're trying to look for a parkour gym, you're trying to look for a parkour park, and it's sometimes very challenging to find those spaces. Whereas now it's like, okay, well, if I create this little series, and I'm currently like working on like a map for it, and maybe like an interactive map as well, where we can kind of like, you can click it, you can see the photos.
I mean, it'd be brilliant for getting people into it. Yeah.
But it's
Absolutely.
like,
We talked earlier, didn't we? I wish I'd got into parkour 4 years earlier, because I live half an hour away from Traversal. Didn't know it existed for 4 years. And, it's something.
How did you
interactive.
find it then?
I think I just Googled. I was looking for local places, and the place that my son went didn't do any adult classes, or I couldn't see anything. And I was shocked when I found there was an actual gym nearby, and had been for 4 years. So
It's about sparking people, because usually if you Google it, you will find the close gyms, but it's about getting that spark. Like, how do we get people Googling parkour? Because a lot of people don't even know what parkour is. They might know of it, like, oh, that's that free jumping.
Jumping off a roof.
Yeah, but like actually getting because I think most people have seen it somewhere, getting from that point to like, oh no, this is an accessible sport in sort of most areas of the UK, and letting people know that it's kind of, as Parkour UK, that's something we're going to try and do, I guess.
I can't like stress enough as well how much like these spaces are important. So like that little Hampton one that I put on, I think it did really well on YouTube or something. It's a lot of people are like, oh, I live in that area, or I didn't know it existed, or oh yeah, I go there all the time, like I really enjoy it and stuff. And it's like these spaces, like they could actually like really ignite something within someone. And it's like,
and that one's a great example, because it's nothing really. It's a platform and some rails, but the amount that you could do with it is huge.
And it's, showcasing those spaces for people. It's like, for someone like me, when I was younger, I didn't go to a parkour class. I watched a video and started hopping over the fence at the end of, like, at the park at the end of my road. So if I can, like, make this kind of stuff and it hits the right people, or it just inspires someone to see it and go, oh, is there anything like that in my local area? To kind of, like,
Just hit that trigger.
Just give them that little,
like, oh, it's possible.
push to get going.
Yeah.
Because people might not even know what these places are. Like, if you see a parkour gym outside, you know, if you're not into parkour, do you even know what that is for?
Yeah, actually, so a friend of mine, you know, Mark Bush from out of Germany, he's very incredibly passionate parkour athlete. He sent me an idea, which might be something that we could look into trying to do, which is at all these little parkour parks that, you know, inevitably loads of kids will end up through, even if they don't know what parkour is. We could have like a little notice board, you know, at each one with like the local park. Like you could put, like, if you're a local parkour coach, you could put your little thing in, and like might be a way to get people involved, because I feel like we get close to so many people, right? Like the people see a bit of parkour, they see a little space or something, but then being like, oh, this is an accessible sport that you can do at a beginner level anywhere. Like,
the one that I've always wondered why we don't have is on parkour parks. You know, when you go in and see the calisthenic parks where you've got the, you know, the chest, and
they
there'll always
tell
be
you-
some, and they
Yes.
tell you how
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
We could have
We s-
some
yeah.
demonstrable boards going, this is how you do a lache,
We
and
spoke
this is how
about
you know.
having a QR code so that you could zap it and it would show you exactly, and then maybe you could upload a video and
Here's
we
some
could do
basic challenges, some fundamentals you
yeah.
could learn in this space.
Absolutely.
because the spaces exist. Yeah, there is a lot to be explored
There is.
there, especially for us. No, that's a good shout for future, 100%. I like the QR code. It's very modern, you know.
Is it? I'm not quite sure anymore.
QR codes take you to TikTok, and then on TikTok you got
I used to get really annoyed. Like, I go to like a restaurant in like Madrid and I wouldn't bring my phone, and then they don't have menus. There's only a QR code menu, and I was like, it made me feel old again. Like, yeah, that's where things are going. It'll be in London soon. They'll only do QR code menus next maybe 10 years. Like, it'll happen. Yeah. Bit of a tangent, but yeah. No, but you know, on that, you know, that's one great idea. What do we want to see? What do you guys, both of you, want to see from parkour of the coming years? What's it missing? What opportunities do we need? What, I don't know, companies do we need to get involved? Like, where should our sport's still quite small? Where should we be going?
Do you want to go first on that?
Gosh.
Yeah, big question. You know.
Yeah, it's a big question. I really like some of the new the takeover formats that we were talking about earlier. I think that's really cool.
Would you go out to any parkour events as well? Or have you been to any yet?
So seen stuff, but not actively attended. But I would do if something was, you know, local and advertised well, and I knew about it in advance.
To take part or just to spectate?
At this point, to spectate.
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's the kind of thing where you could go and you could try something. Like, you know, you go to a Brighton event, anyone can try a wall run. It's there and it's easy. So I think more stuff like that is really good. I think we're about to see a bit of a resurgence within the culture this year. You know, we've got the Stora game coming out. There's been another game that was released earlier this year. There's some TV shows that are featuring parkour at the moment. Like, it feels like it's coming back into the
zeitgeist a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So I think now's a good opportunity, but I think you know, we need to be a bit more nationally organised on how we advertise and how we do things. Like, you know, like, for example, the fact that there isn't currently a map available with all the list of parkour parks in, and people therefore it's harder to Google if they want to. Like, those kind of things.
Yeah, big up Callun, come on.
Working on it.
Yeah. No, but 100%. Like, we as Parkour UK like are aware of that and like, okay, we need to do this. You know.
Yeah, and it's spot maps as well. Like, you know, if you are outside the sport, how do you get a spot map for your local town?
Yeah, you need to message someone who messages someone. And then I get people messaging me all the time visiting London. Like, oh, we're visiting London. Like, can you train with us? Can't train with you this time, but here's the group chat with all the people training in it. Here's the spot map. So anyone coming to London, or most cities in Europe for that matter, if you message me on Instagram, I'll help you out. But right now, you need to do that.
Right. And I think, you know, like anything else, we have a sport that, unlike, you know, lots of other sports, you don't need to buy any specialist equipment for. You don't need to pay anything to join in with. There's no membership fees or anything else. The barrier for entry should be super low. Yet, because it's a community-based structure, it's inherently difficult to get in if you're not a part of it. So I think, you know,
The barrier for information is too high. Right.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we should try and lower those barriers to entry to make it easier for people who are not into parkour to Google or to look it up and then find that information. You know, let's take what we've already got within the community and seed it outside of that community.
Mate, that is a great point. We ask everyone this question, and that was it was a hard question to answer. You know,
It is. Very succinct.
yeah. No, that was really good. To be fair, yeah, definitely some stuff that like we can action like as Parkour UK as well. How about you, Callun?
I think similar sort of thought process is like how can we look at increasing the participation of the sport, not just from a standpoint of you know, supporting businesses like gyms or helping get more parkour parks built and stuff, but how, like, for the benefits of it, I think like we've spoken enough on this.
For like more bums on seats, as it were.
Yeah, like how, you know, it's got so many physical and mental benefits that you can have, and I think, you know, the accessibility of it, the way that, you know, back when I was that age, I found it, and for me it meant a lot to me when I found it. I didn't have like a sporting background. You know, I found a ton of new friends from it. It's obviously done something to me because I've done it for 13 years now.
It's your way of life now.
But like just trying to see, like, you know, I can't express enough how important it is to storytell and like, you know, to showcase that, you know, with people like Rich, for example. It's like, you know, that's not really a story that we hear too much about at the moment. You know, we want to hear more, you know, stories of the history or cementing like really important points of the development of the sport. You know, hearing the stories of individuals from, you know, the not so typical backgrounds. Like, you know, I'd much rather hear Rich's story than to hear another rehashed version of my story, if that makes sense. So, like I think just going forward, like seeing the benefits of the sport being told by all the different types of people that do it. And I think, you know, exploring how the sport can really influence like individuals, like lives and their like well-being and their health and stuff. So, you know,
I think it's expelling those myths as well, isn't it? That parkour is for only males between the age of 15 to 24.
Yeah, and also changing the perception a bit. Like that's something we're slowly trying to do, because the stuff that obviously gets the most views is these crazy, incredible stunts, but being able to show the process behind that and be like, you know, this person be training for this song and they actually have the ability to do that with like a very small margin of risk relative to someone else because they know what they're doing. I think that's quite important.
And showing that parkour is more than just that as well.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And it can we like to think of parkour as something that can be for everyone and everyone can find themselves in some way in it. So getting that across is super key. And on that point, in terms of, we touched on this a bit, but what do you guys think are like the key transferable skills you get from parkour that you can bring into the rest of your life?
I'll pass this to you first because I think
so we've talked about the health benefits, you know, the social benefits, but for me, it's things like the ability to trust myself in any situation. Like I go traveling somewhere and not have accommodation, or like start like a work freelance, lose a client and be losing money for a couple of months and be like, no, I'll be able to manage this, and just having that like confidence in myself, because I feel like from all the way we challenge ourselves in parkour, it's like you develop a bit of general self-confidence you can bring into everything. For me, that's one of them. So yeah, I'm wondering, especially only 10 months into your journey, you know, there's more to be developed, but I'm wondering where you stand on that.
There's definitely been a big aspect of my relationship with fear and dealing with, you know, like, and that fear's relative, right? Like it could be a tiny wall that you're trying to jump to. It could be a big gap. But, you know, we were talking earlier about a jump back at traversal, and it's not a huge jump, but it is over a gap. And for 3 weeks, I sat in my class, I stood at the top of the wall and looked at that and went, nah, just nah. And on the 4th week, I tried it and it went, you know, it went badly. I landed badly, but I landed. And
been there.
Right. And now it's something that I've repeated many times. And now I'm looking at a bigger gap elsewhere. And, you know, so that whole process of acknowledging that was something that scared me and then prepping it somewhere else and realizing that physically it wasn't difficult, but it was intimidating, and then breaking through that fear and then getting to the point where I no longer had that fear of that gap. You know, that's something you don't get in a lot of other scenarios where you have that process. And, you know, the way we prep for things and then do them, I think is, and again, you know, a fairly unique element of parkour that I don't see shared many other places.
And that's interesting that you're overcoming that fear, whereas usually when you get older, you develop more fear rather than start to conquer it.
Yeah, and I think and you get used to giving into your fears.
Yes.
Right. You like we're not that used to, especially as we get older, to actually taking them on. Yeah.
Yeah, I found, and I think you know different people deal with it in different ways. I found for me, I'm quite good at getting up there and either saying, "No, I'm not going to do it," or just doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas other people tend to be up there and think about it a lot longer. I'll either commit or I'll just say no that day.
Well, that's at 10 months. That's impressive because that shows maturity as an athlete. We spoke about this on the James Adam Ward podcast, and like some people almost lie to themselves. They're up there trying to prep and this and that, and it's kind of like they're losing the battle at this point. They're just going to come away upset. Having the maturity to get up there and be like, all right, I'm doing it, or I'm going to leave it, and either option is fine. That's impressive. You can do that now.
I think there's a makeup aspect of it. Just you know, and again, when you've got kids and it's you've been through that battle. Sometimes it's the right time to have that battle with yourself, and sometimes it's not. And
Choose your battles carefully.
For sure, because you're not going to win them all, right?
Nope.
So I think there's a certain element of, you know, being in that next stage of life where you just kind of have to be pragmatic with what you can do and when, and pick at the right times.
Yeah, so almost the transferable skills from being a parent have actually helped you with parkour.
Yes, yeah, in a weird way. But it's also, it's just, you know, it's been lovely to have that community with my kids and be able to do something, again, like I can't think of many other sports that you can do and get involved alongside your kids.
Yeah, and that's really important bonding time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that one day. Yeah, that was brilliant.
You can take my kids. It's fine.
I might.
Yeah. I'll give me like, I don't know, 10 years and we'll see. Yeah. What about you, Callum? What do you want to see the sport? Where do you want to see the sport of parkour go?
I think skill-wise, you just learn so much like from it. Like, you know, Max, you like I said earlier, you and I have done it long enough now that, you know, there's a lot of skills that we've got. I just think you could do all like the mini things of life. Like it improves your fitness, it improves your confidence, it improves mental well-being and stuff. But and again, for me, it comes back to that element of storytelling. It's like there's so many stories there that can be told about the transferable skills that parkour does give you. And for me, it's been, you know, you kind of touched on it there, risk awareness. It's like I'm quite a risk aware individual, and I think parkour for me has helped me develop that more. But also like a creative aspect as well. Like when you have to go out and look at a space and get creative with it, you know, there might not be a lot there, or there's going to be like loads of things. That's like just threaded into my being now. Like I'm kind of like just always like looking at things from a creative like standpoint. And
See the world differently now.
It's an interesting conversation as well, because there are so many people in parkour who then work in the creative industry or have creative careers, and you know, it could be correlation rather than causation, but like there's definitely an element of either people who are attracted to parkour are also those kinds of people, because it does attract people a bit into less conventional things. But then also the creativity in parkour then tends to push people into creative industries. It's an interesting back and forth, but there is definitely that overlap, I think, of just creativity in general.
Yeah. And I think it helps you build that confidence within yourself as well. So I think, you know, you kind of touched on it there a little bit, but when you like look at a challenge or a movement, you know, for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, for 4 weeks, for however long it is, when you overcome that challenge, there is like a bit of like a confidence boost. And like, I've really worked towards that. I've really, you know, I've thought about this. I've, you know, my training has paid off. And I think from like an outside perspective, like outside of parkour in life as well, that stays with you, because, and it comes back to that risk awareness and stuff, doesn't it? It's like you're thinking about stuff, you even whether it's something small like, you spoke to someone that you didn't think you were going to speak to today, or you go for that job, or you want to get out your, a bit like me, I was in the job that I absolutely detested, and then committed more to coaching, and that was one of the best things that I've done. But that has come from an element of, you do all these challenging things, have trust in yourself, and kind of commit to going for it. I know it's a very cheesy thing to kind of say, but like, the skills, you can talk about the physical skills that parkour gives you all day long, but I think the mental skills that it brings you outweighs the physical stuff a lot of the time. I think it's a big toolkit that
I think in terms of being skilled as an athlete as well, the most skilled athletes are the ones that are mentally very strong and break the fear barriers. But yeah, you make a really good point about that in relation to like the mental side, because a lot of sports, you've got like, you develop discipline as a transferable skill from a large number of sports, you know what I mean? But what is unique to us, and then what you have in some other extreme sports, is that mental side, that breaking of fear. And what you get out of it is the most incredible sense of accomplishment. And I mean, you hear, like, you talk outside of parkour, motivational speakers, this and that, they always talk about getting out of your comfort zone, right? Parkour is parkour. About every single thing you do to push yourself in parkour is getting out of your comfort zone. Not just physically in terms of like, I'm going to run really hard, or I'm going to lift as hard as I can, which is one element of that, but getting out of your comfort zone in terms of like, you're scared and then breaking that. And for me, like, I think it's the most, especially when you really push yourself, it's the most intense feeling of accomplishment that you can have. And for me, it's the best feeling in the world. And that feeling carries over into life. And the knowing you can break this and defeat these challenges, whatever they will be, and then maybe when it comes to public speaking or something like you were saying, you can take that over. So
I think you also, those achievement, that feeling of accomplishment is never quite the same every time, because with parkour, it's not like you're on a sports field that's purpose built for that sport. No two walls are the same as any other two walls. Every time you might be doing the same lazy vault you've done 100 times, but you're doing it in a slightly different environment, and it's nuanced, and so you get that same adrenaline buzz of, oh, I did that, and that's new, and that's cool today.
Every new challenge needs to be learned and accomplished, and then you're right, some of them,
in its own right,
some of them do feel very different to others. Yeah, it's interesting. That's something I always try to communicate with parkour, is just like the actual feeling you get from beating that fear and like going through essentially an uncomfortable feeling and coming out the other side with a win. It's unbelievable. And I honestly think a lot of people don't experience that in life generally. So it's a really beautiful thing to be able to do at any level.
And it's great for anybody who's got struggle with maintaining attention on things, or like, it's different every time. And something tiny and nuanced can make the difference. The same two walls, if there's overgrown plants on one and there's not on the other, is completely different as a challenge.
100%.
So
it's difficult to get bored of when it's different every time.
Yeah, exactly. Like even myself, like I train, like parkour's super diverse, but I tend to train the same 2 or 3 movements all the time, and I'm never even close to bored. On the contrary, like I'm always more invigorated to do it. Yeah. So there is definitely that. So finally, I just want to see goals for yourselves, both in parkour, outside parkour, over the next few years. Like, what are you guys hoping to do and achieve in and around the sport?
After you.
We discussed some of this earlier on over our coffee, but
yours is the Europe trip, and then the global trip
in Australia.
I mean, for me,
it's seeing that, Callun.
Oh gosh, I'm not going to financially recover, that's for sure. For me, it's there's a couple of things. I think Rich and I had a coffee earlier on, but there's a few movement goals that I've always wanted to do that I want to get. Some of them are acrobatic, some of them are kind of bigger movements.
Any specific like challenges at a spot, or
I want to do manpower.
Come on,
that's I think I've always wanted to work towards that.
Okay, this is the famous, for anyone that doesn't know, the famous manpower gap, first done in District 13 by David Bell over 20 years ago. It's a big drop from a balcony about 5 or 6 meters over a small distance wise, but very high gap that you cannot fall down onto some gravel, and it's a bit of a rite of passage in parkour. A lot of people do a bit of a pilgrimage out there to that place where parkour was founded in Lys-en-Evry on the outskirts of Paris and do this jump. So it'd be really cool if you could get that. And honestly, I think it's very achievable. You just need to train some drops in the lead up, and
that's it. I think for me, it's, not that I'm getting anywhere near old or anything like that, but for me, it's like when I eventually start wrapping up, big training, like taking drops, taking, height and stuff, I want to have achieved that. Yeah. So I think, we kind of discussed
it's
earlier.
important to achieve something before you reach my age.
But yeah, so that's that. That's on the list, and what I would probably call like swan song of big gaps and stuff. But yeah, I just want to push more this kind of content journey that I've been going on with the parks. I want to do some more longer form pieces on it. When I go to visit Manpower, I want to showcase where parkour started.
There's a parkour park at Manpower, by the way. Like 100 meters away, they built one. Like it's just down the street. You can see it from Manpower.
Two birds, one stone.
Yeah, two birds, one stone.
Look at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's just continue like pushing coaching, trying to find a way to get more individuals like Rich, into sessions and stuff. Because I think for me, I've always wanted to share my love of training with people. And I know that there's going to be barriers for some individuals. Maybe they don't know where to find us. Maybe they don't know the best place to go. Maybe they're scared of coming to a session because they don't know that they're going to fit in. They're going to think there's some expectation. And I feel like part of that responsibility of me is to break that barrier down as much as possible to individuals so they can...
very noble pursuit.
Nice.
It's kind of where I'm at right now is I think it's quite a good space for me. So...
Oh, my goals are going to feel very selfish now.
Don't worry.
Well,
he's a big community man, Callun. Like 13 years, parkour has given to him, and he's giving back.
Yeah, my main priority is not getting in Callun's way as he does that. I'm on a fitness journey. I want to carry on. About halfway to my goal. So
cool.
I've never, as an adult, felt like I'm particularly fit and I want to be. So I want to do that. I don't see any reason why not. So I'm going to carry on with that. And then there's a bunch of stuff I want to be able to do just because, like I want to be that guy who can do the backflip I mentioned earlier, or who can, do the palm spin, or I want to be able to do that stuff. So
you'll get there as well.
Yeah, and like, it might take me a while, it might take me years, but I'd like to keep going and push for that stuff. And then I'd like to do more stuff in the community. I'd like to, join some outdoor jams or, get involved, maybe some kind of takeover down the line. But, I don't have any short-term need to do this straight away. I'm going to keep doing my 1% and hopefully eventually I'll get there.
Sounds
brilliant. Good. Well, thanks so much for coming on, guys. Really appreciate it. This has been a great podcast. And if you guys are thirsty for some more content, jump onto our website. All right, we've got blog articles. We've got some content pieces like videos. We got like an event schedule up on there. Loads of good stuff. Loads of information how to get involved in parkour. So from everyone here at Parkour UK, train safe.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.